Hello and welcome back to for the very first time to the channel. I am Will and today I'm going to be talking about my TBR, my to be read pile from July to September. And so I'm a little bit late in doing this as I'm recording this in the latter half of July. So yeah, I've been a bit busy, but I'm rectifying that mistake today. And so every 3 months I kind of do this kind of seasonal or quarterly summary of what I plan to read, and then at the end of the 3 months I look at whether I actually hit those goals, read the amount of books I was aiming to, and if I actually kept the schedule, which is a rare thing when it comes to my reading. But so far, I've got a little bit of an advantage as I'm nearing the end of July. I'm only going to be talking about the books in July that I've either read so far or I think I'll be able to read by the end of the month. So cheating a little bit, but yeah. So my reading goal for the entire year is 100 books. And so that means about 8.5 books or something around that every month. And so I think I've got 24 books here. I was quite planned. I think I might have gone a bit over or a bit under, but it's around that number. And it's actually been going quite well in July. And so I'm going to kick it off with what my reading plans for in July. So first up, I have Malice. This is book one of the Faith and the Fallen by Papa John Gwynne. Papa to me, not to everyone else. And this is part of a read-along with my brother Ed over on the Brothers Gwynne, with Theo on Rekindled Reader, great channel, and then RJ Gibson over on RJ Reads. And so we're doing a read-along together. We'll be chatting about each instalment, doing a live discussion or chat with all of us on our channels at the end of each month for each respective book, spoiler filled, so we can kind of gush about this amazing book, amazing in my opinion anyway, and I'm not biased at all. And yeah, so I listened to Malice for the first time, and that's what I'll be doing for all the books because I've read them physically 7, 8, 9, 10, probably more times. So I'm going to try the audiobooks for the first time, and spoiler alert, I loved listening to Malice for the first time. It was absolutely awesome. And next up I have Pet Sematary by Stephen King. Already finished this, and so yeah, I really want to read some more Stephen King. And yeah, I'm not going to go into my thoughts of all the books that I've read so far because I've got some reviews coming out, some monthly summaries over in the Brothers Gwynne and more. So yeah, I won't bore you making you listen to that twice. But yeah, Pet Sematary, really great read, going amongst my favourite Stephen King reads ever. And I've not read too much by him, but probably 6 or 7 works, so still up there. And I absolutely adored it, and yeah, I'll be talking about it quite a bit, and it's made me want to dive into more King works right away. But we've got a schedule to keep to, and so yeah, I've had to put some other books first. And so one of those is Witch's Sin, book one of the Neon Ghost series by Daniel Green. Yes, the king of booktubers, he's often known. This was great. I really enjoyed it. I read his novella Breach of Peace a few years ago, and I really enjoyed the concept, the premise, and the characters, but I felt his prose, his kind of standard narrative needed a bit of work. And the same with the dialogue, it felt a bit fractured. And so it was really great with The Witch's Sin, which is a novel, a proper full-sized book, that he's really worked on his craft because the narrative voice felt a lot smoother, a lot more fluid, and yeah, really enjoyed it. Cyberpunk isn't really my usual genre, so it took me a while to get into, but beyond that, really enjoyed it. And yeah, Witch's Sin, another book that I've so far read in July. And then next up is Uncrowned by Will White. This is book 7 of Cradle. You'll be hearing more about other installments of this series later in this video because the only reading goal I've stuck to really is listening to 1 installment of Cradle a month. And so hopefully I'll keep to that and finish the series by the end of the year. And then I have The Prophet of Adan by Philip Chase. Book 2 of his series. He's releasing all 3 installments in 2023. It is the year of Philip, and I absolutely loved The Way of Adan, which is book 1, and yeah, I've been terrible. I haven't read book 2 yet, even though I have such high hopes, and yeah, I'll be getting to it. It'll be my next physical read, and I'm sure I will adore it. Me and my brother Ed, we had very similar thoughts on book 1, really enjoyed it, and for the same reasons, and so that gives me great hope because he said The Prophet of Adan is even better, and there's some other incredible characters here who have risen up to his favourites of the series, and this is a character-driven book. Well, book 1 is anyway, and so yeah, I really felt invested in those characters. So to hear that there's better characters or kind of more favourite characters in book 2 is great praise indeed by my brother Ed, and I really cannot wait to read The Prophet of Adan. And then another book that I have read so far is Sons of Darkness by Gaurav Mohanty. If you want to hear a pitch from Gaurav himself and Philip as well, you can head over to the Brothers Gwynne. We did a June/July new releases, and that we give the authors 1 to 2 minutes to kind of pitch their own book to viewers to see if it kind of will be a book for them. And Sons of Darkness, I'm an advocate, really enjoyed it. Epic fantasy at its best, really great. Inspired by kind of Game of Thrones, and then Mahabharata, which I believe is the longest epic poem in existence. And so yeah, great inspiration there, but still from it has come a really unique work. And so yeah, that is Sons of Darkness by Gaurav Mohanty. And then I have another release, but I've not read this yet, and this is David Ragg's The Hunters, and I'm really looking forward to reading this. My brother Ed recently finished it and said it was great, and yeah, I've heard really positive thoughts on The Hunters, and I've really enjoyed David Ragg's previous 2 books as well. And so yeah, really looking forward to reading The Hunters. And isn't that just awesome cover art, a great design, and it's got a Western influence as well, which I'm really looking forward to seeing explored. And then I have Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I'm beginning my reread of this series, and yeah, I finished it, as is the story of a lot of the books in July already, and I loved it even more than I remembered. I remember it took me a little while to get into it the first time around, like kind of the first 100 pages or so. And then once it got into kind of the main brunch of it, yeah, I really was into the story. But this time I was in right away. I thought thematically it was very interesting, kind of seeing the exploration of the key themes and motivations from the beginning. And yeah, I thought it really showed Pierce Brown really had kind of a map, an image, a vision of what was to come. And so yeah, you can really see that in the seeds that are sown early on. And yeah, really enjoyed Red Rising and reading that again, and I'll be continuing. And you may hear a bit more about the series later on in my August and September plans. And then I have Yellowface, which I'm currently listening to by Rebecca F. Kuang. And so she's usually a fantasy author. She wrote the Poppy War trilogy, and then she wrote Babel, which I absolutely adored. And she's gone to contemporary fiction, and Yellowface is about an author who she's kind of not failing, but she's struggling in her career, and a friend of hers is incredibly successful, and she's a bit jealous of this author, and she's spending a night with the author, and a tragic incident occurs in which her friend dies, but her friend has recently shown her the new masterpiece that she's written. And so our main POV, does she take the manuscript and kind of pretend it's her own? Maybe. I'll leave it to you to listen to it. I'm really enjoying it. And even if you're a fantasy reader mainly, please try this out. It's really engaging, really captivating, and that is kind of the main drive of the story. And yeah, it's really good so far. And I think that is everything for July. And so next up, let's head on into August. So I'll be kicking off August how I kicked off July, and that will be with A Faith from the Fallen reread. So this is book 2, Valor, and yeah, the more pages the better when it comes to Papa Gwyn. And so same story as with Malice, I'll be listening to it for the very first time, which will be very interesting. A lot of characters here that are introduced in Valor that became so core to the series, and so it'd be interesting to see kind of how they're introduced, and hearing Damien Lynch's accents for them will be very entertaining, I am sure. And so yeah, really looking forward to listening to Valor and also chatting about it on all the channels and with the people we're doing the read along with. And then I have Winter Steel, which is book 8 of the Cradle series by Will White. Same as I said before, I'll be listening to one installment a month because these are great palette cleansers. I think if I read them back to back, they might become a bit repetitive, a bit formulaic, but spread apart, they're really enjoyable. And I'm looking forward to continuing the story with these characters. And then next up, I'm going to talk about 2 together, and these are the sequels to Yellow Sky Revolt, which was one of my favourite reads of 2023 so far, and I've done a review of it on the channel actually, and so yeah, you can check that out if you want to. Historical fiction at its best. And book 2, Heroes of Chaos, I'll be reading very early in August. It'd be my first physical read of August, hopefully. And so that is book 2. And then I'm very lucky to have been given early access to book 3, Dynasty of Killers. And so I'll be reading these back to back, kind of re-immersing myself in this world, in the characters and the cast and the story that is being created in this epic chronicler's story. And this is looking at the War of the Three Kingdoms in China, a lot of which has been romanticized in The Romance of the Three Kingdoms and games like Dynasty Warriors, which were such a core part of my childhood. And so yeah, really loved the kind of different take, the more historical take, authentic, not completely, but more authentic take in Yellow Sky Revolt. And of course, it's there from almost 2 millennium ago now. And so yeah, the sources, there are a lot of gaps in the sources that we have, and many are unreliable. And so I really enjoyed kind of the way that those are filled in Yellow Sky Revolt, and I'm sure that will continue with these next 2 installments. And then I've Sealed Empire, which is self-published work, which my brother Ed is currently reading, and he said it is really great. And so yeah, it's been on the list in August, and I'll be picking it up. And then I have He Who Drowned the World, book 2 of the series, which was kicked off, I believe, 2 years ago in epic, phenomenal fashion with She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. And so the long-awaited sequel is finally coming, and I'm lucky that I have early access through NetGalley, and so I cannot wait to read He Who Drowned the World. Some historical fantasy. I love a bit of historical fantasy, and so yeah, great to immerse myself in some more. I'm sure it will be anyway. And then yeah, that is everything I have in August, and now let's head on into September. And you guessed it, I'm going to be kicking off September with a Faithful and the Fallen read. Ruin, book 3, my favourite of the series actually. And so yeah, as I said with Malice and Valor, I don't want to be repeating myself too much, but yeah, I'll be listening to it for the first time in audiobook fashion. And yeah, I cannot wait to kind of go through these events. So many of kind of my favourite Papa Gwyn moments are in Ruin. And so yeah, looking forward to seeing them. And it's possibly his most heartbreaking book as well. So I'm sure there'll be lots and lots of tears. And now I'm going to be talking about a new release, which will be coming out in September. And that is The Words of Kings and Prophets by Shauna Lawless. Book 2 of Gale's Song, or Jael's Song. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Book 1 is some Irish mythology mixed with historical fiction. It is The Children of Gods and Fighting Men, a review of which is over on The Brothers Gwyn, one of my favourite reads of last year. And here it is. I have the special edition because I loved it. And so this is late 10th century Ireland that we thrust into the political machinations from the perspective of 2 leading female characters. And they have kind of hidden motivations at times, and they have to survive in a patriarchal society dominated by those kind of hegemonic values. So very interesting seeing the story from their perspective, how they kind of try and reach their goals and motivations and desires, and kind of the drive and kind of attempt to survive in such a violent world as well. And so yeah, really brilliant first installment, and I cannot wait to be immersed back in Shauna Lawless's beautiful writing for book 2. And then I will be listening to The Silmarillion. Recently Andy Serkis did a narration, and so I'll be listening to that. I listened to his narration of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and adored it. They're some of my favourite books, and I thought of course he will do a great reading with the accents and the character voices, but I was positively surprised by how good his kind of general narrative voice was. It was absolutely brilliant, and I felt so immersed. I really felt like he understood and eked out the finer nuances of kind of the thematic work and kind of the tone and atmosphere. And yeah, it was brilliant, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of the same with The Silmarillion, which I absolutely adore. I love The Silmarillion. So many incredible moments, so many times that I sob and cry. And so yeah, looking forward to kind of experiencing that in audiobook form. And then I have Bloodline, which is book 9 of Cradle. And so yeah, same story. Will White, 1 installment a month. Really looking forward to it. And then I have Wolves of Winter, which is book 2 of the Essex Dogs. I believe it will be a trilogy. And so that is another one that I have the special edition of. Dan Jones, the very renowned and famous historian, and he's turned to historical fiction. Essex Dogs was absolutely wonderful. So this is about the 100 Years' War, and it is about kind of really exposing what warfare is really like. We see the grueling marches, we see kind of the wagon trains, the securing abandoned villages, and those small-scale skirmishes as well as large-scale. And it says on the back, some men fight for glory, others fight for coin. The Essex Dogs fight for each other. So I love that it kind of shows kind of an authentic, real aspect to kind of what these people are fighting for. It's not for chivalry, it's not for glory. It is for their own kind of self-preservation and their own worth. But we have heart in the story as well, because as it says, the Essex Dogs fight for each other. So we have that heart to the story as they are the characters, we are rooting for them. But not many people around them, because most of them are terrible people. And yeah, so yeah, it was really great. He's got a great kind of authorial voice that I really enjoyed, and very different take on historical fiction that just clicked with me. And then next up I have a release, I believe it comes out in September, but it might be October, but I'm very, very lucky to have early access to it. This is Mothtown, which is kind of fantastical horror meets literary fiction. And yeah, it's being published by Angry Robot. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading it. And so yeah, that is on the list for September. And then I have The House with the Golden Door by Elodie Harper, book 2 of the Wolf Den trilogy. I absolutely adored the Wolf Den. I think it was the first book I did a review of on this channel. And I delayed reading book 2 because book 3 comes out this coming November, and so I don't want there to be too much of a gap between the two. And so yeah, The House of the Golden Door, my brother Ed, I forced him to read The Wolf Den. He loved it. He read book 2. He said it's even better. And so yeah, I cannot wait to read The House of the Golden Door and to be back with Amara and her story. And yeah, Elodie Harper, The Wolf Den was truly an incredible book that you just know when you're reading it is one of those rare experiences where you're utterly engaged, utterly hooked. Every storytelling element is just of the highest craft. And so yeah, I cannot wait to be back with her writing and her story with The House with the Golden Door. And then next up, I have A Drowned Kingdom by P.L. Stewart. I have had this on the list for so long, but I will be getting to it. I promise you. I've delayed it a few times just because other things have come up, but I will be getting to A Drowned Kingdom. P.L. Stewart is so interesting. I've heard what a lot of his inspirations are and kind of the themes that are kind of at the core of this story. And it sounds like it's made for me. And so I cannot wait to read A Drowned Kingdom. And then that is everything. And I believe that was 24 books. Everyone, thank you so much for watching this video where I talk about my July to September TBR. And so yeah, be interesting to see if I kind of reach this. I'll look back probably in the beginning of October. I'll look back on these 3 months and see if I hit those goals. From October to December, that'll be when I'm starting uni, and so kind of the genres and kind of my reading will change a lot. I think I'll be reading a lot more, but probably a lot more non-fiction. And obviously work that is revolving around my course. I'm doing English and history at uni. And so, yeah, I'll be back at it. Well, not back at it. I'll be going to it for the first time, but I'll be back at it talking about my TBR then. And so everyone, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, let me know what you'll be reading throughout these 3 months. And yeah, I'll be really looking forward to talking to you about them in the comments below. And let me know if you've read any of these, any that you think I'll love, any that you think you'll be picking up as well. But everyone, as I said, thank you so much for watching and stay safe.